The quantum storms have been raging in the void sector for 3 days now, and Commander Vex was getting tired of waiting. His patrol fleet had been ordered to maintain position at the sector's edge, watching the violent purple lightning tear through space like angry claws. No ship had ever survived passage through those storms, which is why the void sector remained one of the last unexplored regions of known space. "Commander, the storms are weakening," reported Lieutenant Kale from the sensor station aboard the Alliance cruiser Starfall. "We should have clear passage in another hour." Vex nodded, his forearms working efficiently at his command console. As a member of the Kalari species, he was well suited for the multitasking demands of deep space patrol work. His elongated skull housed a brain capable of processing multiple data streams simultaneously, making him an ideal fleet commander for dangerous missions like this one. "Any signs of the missing science vessel?" Vex asked, though he already knew the answer. The research ship Horizon had disappeared into the void sector 2 weeks ago, chasing some unusual energy readings. The Alliance Council had ordered a search and rescue mission, though everyone knew it was really a body recovery operation. "Negative, sir. But the interference from the storms makes long-range scanning impossible." The Starfall was accompanied by 2 smaller escort vessels, the Comet and the Dawn. Together, they represented a significant investment of Alliance resources, which was why Vex felt the pressure to bring back something useful from this mission. The Alliance was currently dealing with budget constraints, and failed rescue missions did not help his career prospects. As the storms finally began to dissipate, Vex ordered his small fleet forward. The void sector opened up before them like a vast black throat, dotted with the twisted remains of asteroids that had been caught in previous storm cycles. The space here felt different somehow, as if the very fabric of reality had been stretched and scarred by the repeated quantum disturbances. "Sir, I'm picking up something massive on long-range sensors," Kale announced, his voice carrying a note of excitement. "Distance approximately 50,000 kilometers, bearing 27 Mark IV. Vex activated his personal scanner display and felt his breath catch in his throat. The object was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his cruiser. Its shape was unlike anything in the Alliance database, with angular lines and what appeared to be heavy armor plating along its hull. "Could it be a space station?" asked Captain Terra from the escort ship Comet over the communication channel. "Negative," Vex replied, studying the readings more carefully. "It's definitely a ship, but the design is completely unknown. The hull configuration suggests it was built for warfare, not exploration or trade." As they drew closer, more details became visible. The massive vessel was dark and apparently lifeless, drifting slowly through space without any power emissions. Its hull was scarred with what looked like weapon impacts, some of them large enough to have destroyed smaller ships entirely. Despite the damage, the overall structure remained intact, suggesting incredibly robust construction. "Commander, the ship's length measures just over 4 kilometers, Kale reported. "I've never seen anything that large designed for combat operations." Vex had to agree. The Alliance's largest military vessels were barely a quarter that size, and they were considered massive by Galactic standards. This unknown ship was more like a floating city than a traditional warship, yet every line of its design screamed military purpose. "Are you detecting any life signs?" Vex asked. "Negative, sir. No power signatures, no thermal emissions, no communications traffic. Whatever this ship is, it appears to have been dead for a very long time." As the Starfall moved into closer scanning range, more details emerged that made Vex increasingly uncomfortable. The unknown ship's weapon systems were clearly visible along its hull, and they were both numerous and massive. Multiple launch bays suggested it had once carried significant fighter squadrons, while the heavy gun emplacements indicated it had been designed to engage large targets in direct combat. "Sir, I'm reading some kind of text on the hull," Kale announced. "The universal translator is having trouble with it, but I think it says something like US Defiance near what appears to be the command section." "US," Vex repeated thoughtfully. "That designation isn't in any of our databases. Have you found any trace of the Horizon?" "No, sir, but there are some debris fields in the area that could be from various sources. The quantum storms make it difficult to determine age or origin." Vex made his decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding party." I want to know what this ship is and where it came from. Something this large doesn't just appear in space without explanation. Sir, are you sure that's wise? Captain Terra's voice carried obvious concern. Unknown alien technology could be dangerous, especially on a warship of that size. Our orders are to investigate any potential threats to Alliance security, Vex replied firmly. A 4-kilometer warship of unknown origin definitely qualifies as a potential threat. The boarding party was assembled quickly. Vex himself, Lieutenant Kale, 2 security officers, and a technical specialist named Dr. Fox who had expertise in analyzing alien technology. They transferred to the Starfall's shuttle and began the short journey to the mysterious vessel. As they approached the massive ship, its true scale became overwhelming. The hull plating was thick enough to withstand incredible punishment, while the weapon systems appeared to be designed for conflicts far more intense than anything in recent galactic history. Most disturbing were the deep scars that covered much of the hull's surface, as if this ship had fought in battles that no current Alliance vessel could have survived. Look at those impact marks, Dr. Fox observed as they flew alongside the hull. Whatever weapons created those scars used technology one don't recognize. The metal around the impact sites shows molecular disruption patterns that our current weapons can't produce. They located what appeared to be a docking bay about halfway along the ship's length. The massive doors were sealed, but Dr. Fox was able to interface with the ship's basic systems using standard Alliance protocols. To everyone's surprise, the doors responded and slowly opened, revealing a cavernous hangar bay that could have accommodated their entire patrol fleet. The ship still has some basic power, Dr. Fox reported as they flew into the hangar. Emergency systems are maintaining atmospheric pressure and minimal lighting. The hangar was filled with what were clearly fighter craft, though their design was as unknown as the mothership itself. The fighters were sleek and deadly looking, with weapon systems that appeared far more advanced than current Alliance standards. Row after row of them stretched into the distance, suggesting this ship had once carried hundreds of combat aircraft. After securing their shuttle, the boarding party began exploring the ship's interior. The corridors were wide and well-constructed, clearly designed to accommodate large numbers of crew members moving quickly during combat operations. Everything about the ship's design spoke of a military culture that took warfare very seriously indeed. The artificial gravity is still functioning, Kale observed as they walked deeper into the ship. Whatever power source this vessel uses, it's incredibly robust to still be operating after what appears to be centuries of abandonment. They discovered living quarters that had been designed for a species roughly humanoid in shape, though the furniture and equipment suggested being somewhat larger than most current galactic races. Personal effects were still present in many of the rooms, though they were covered in dust and showed signs of long abandonment. "Commander, you need to see this." Dr. Fox called for what appeared to be a medical facility. Vex and the others hurried to join him, finding Dr. Fox standing beside a series of cylindrical chambers filled with some kind of transparent liquid. Inside each chamber was a humanoid figure, apparently preserved in perfect condition despite the obvious age of the ship. "Stasis pods," Dr. Fox breathed in amazement. "They're still active. These beings have been in suspended animation for an unknown period of time." Vex studied the figures in the chambers with growing unease. They were definitely humanoid, but larger and more muscular than most galactic species. Their faces, visible through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, showed strong jaw lines and pronounced brow ridges that suggested a warrior species. "Can you identify their race?" Vex asked. "Negative, sir. They don't match any species in our databases, but the technology preserving them is incredibly advanced. I've never seen stasis systems this sophisticated." As they continued exploring, they discovered more stasis chambers throughout the ship, hundreds of them, all containing similar humanoid figures in perfect preservation. Whatever race had built this ship, they had apparently been preparing for a very long journey indeed. The bridge was located near the front of the massive vessel, and it was unlike any command center Vex had ever seen. Multiple command stations surrounded a central platform, with tactical displays that could show three-dimensional star maps of incredible complexity. The technology was clearly far in advance of current Alliance standards, yet had been designed with an obvious emphasis on military efficiency. Sir, I'm reading massive computer databases throughout the ship. Kale reported from one of the command stations. The amount of stored information is staggering. There appear to be detailed records of star systems, military tactics, weapon specifications, and what looks like historical archives. Any indication of who built this ship or where it came from? Working on it, sir. The language is completely unknown, but there are some mathematical concepts that might provide translation keys. As Vex stood on the bridge of this mysterious vessel, he felt a growing sense that they had discovered something far more significant than a simple, derelict ship. The advanced technology, the military focus, the hundreds of beings in stasis, all suggested a civilization with capabilities that might rival or exceed the Alliance itself. And somewhere deep in the ship's core, systems that had been dormant for centuries began responding to the presence of intruders, initiating protocols that had been waiting patiently for this moment of discovery. Deep within the massive ship's core, ancient systems stirred to life as they detected the presence of unknown intruders walking through corridors that had been silent for over 3 centuries. Emergency protocols activated with quiet efficiency, beginning the careful process of awakening the ship's most important occupant from his long sleep. Captain James Ward felt consciousness return slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep, dark ocean. The stasis chamber's revival systems worked methodically to restore his body's functions, warming his blood and restarting his heart with practiced precision. As his eyes finally opened, he found himself staring up at the familiar blue glow of the chamber's status displays. "Aria, report," he said, his voice coming out as barely more than a whisper after centuries of silence. "Welcome back, Captain." The ship's artificial intelligence responded in the calm, professional tone he remembered so well. "Current date is 312 years, 4 months, and 16 days since you entered stasis. I have awakened you due to the presence of 5 unknown intruders currently exploring Deck 7. Ward felt the stasis chamber's restraints release as his body finished its revival cycle. He sat up slowly, fighting off the dizziness that always accompanied long-term stasis recovery. 300 years. The number hit him like a physical blow, though he had known this day would eventually come. Status of defiance? All primary systems remain functional. Hull integrity at 93%. Main power core operating at optimal efficiency. Crew complement remains at 4,872 individuals in stasis, with no losses recorded during the dormancy period. And the intruders? 5 individuals of unknown species, currently examining the bridge systems. Their technology appears primitive compared to our standards, but they have somehow managed to access basic ship functions. I estimate their technological development to be approximately 2 to 3 centuries behind our current capabilities. Ward pulled himself from the stasis chamber and began putting on his uniform, muscle memory guiding his movements despite the long sleep. The captain's quarters adjoining his private stasis room had been maintained perfectly by the ship systems, every detail exactly as he had left it before beginning his long wait. "Show me surveillance of these intruders." The wall display activated, showing 5 alien beings moving to the bridge with obvious amazement at the ship's technology. Ward studied them carefully, noting their body language and equipment. They moved like explorers rather than soldiers, though they were clearly being cautious about potential dangers. "Analysis suggests they are members of what they call the Galactic Alliance," Arya continued. "I have been monitoring their communications and have achieved approximately 78% translation accuracy. They appear to represent a confederation of multiple species that has developed during our dormancy period. Any sign of the Devourers?" "Negative, Captain. Long-range sensors detect no Devourer signatures within 50 light-years of our current position. However, my scans of local space reveal something disturbing." Ward finished dressing and moved to his personal command console. "Elaborate." "The star systems we are currently detecting match the locations of former human colonies, but they are now inhabited by these alliance species. Terra Nova, New Beijing, Armstrong Station, and dozens of other human settlements now show alien populations and infrastructure." The implications hit Ward immediately. While humanity had been hiding in the deep void, preparing for the Devourer's return, other species had moved into their former territories. The colonies that humanity had been forced to abandon were now home to aliens who probably had no idea they were living on human worlds. What do their databases tell us about human history? According to Alliance records, humans were a primitive species that destroyed themselves in nuclear warfare approximately 400 years ago. There is no mention of human space colonization, the Devourer War, or our exodus into deep space. It appears that all evidence of human interstellar civilization has been systematically erased or forgotten. Ward felt a cold anger building in his chest. Not only had humanity been driven from their worlds by an enemy that consumed entire civilizations, but their very existence had been wiped from galactic memory. These Alliance species were living in human cities, using human infrastructure, and calling themselves the original inhabitants. Captain, the intruders have accessed our historical databases, Arya reported. They are attempting to translate our records, though their primitive computer systems are having difficulty with our encryption. Let them look, Ward decided. They're going to learn the truth one way or another. Begin awakening the senior staff. I want the command crew conscious within the hour. Understood, Captain. Should I activate defensive systems to deal with the intruders? Not yet. I want to talk to them first. They might have information we need about current galactic conditions. Ward made his way through the ship's corridors toward the bridge, passing stasis chambers that were beginning to show signs of activation. The familiar hum of the Defiance's systems felt comforting after so many years of silence, though he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy they had awakened to was very different from the one they had left behind. The bridge's main entrance opened silently as he approached, and Ward stepped inside to find the 5 aliens clustered around the central command station, obviously trying to make sense of the ship's advanced systems. They looked up in surprise as he entered, and he could see the shock in their expressions as they realized they were no longer alone. I am Captain James Ward of the United Earthship Defiance, he announced in what he hoped was their language. Arya's translation protocols were feeding him the correct words through his neural implant. You are currently aboard a human military vessel. The alien, who was obviously their leader, stepped forward, his 4 arms moving in what appeared to be a gesture of peaceful intent. I am Commander Vex of the Alliance cruiser Starfall. We found your ship drifting in the void sector and came aboard to investigate. We mean no harm. Human, Vex continued, his voice showing obvious confusion. But humans are extinct. Our records show they destroyed themselves centuries ago. Your records are wrong, Ward replied flatly. Humanity survived, though not in the way you might expect. We were forced to leave our worlds to escape an enemy that was destroying our civilization. We've been hiding in deep space, waiting for the right time to return. What enemy? Asked one of the other aliens, a smaller individual who appeared to be some kind of scientist or technician. The Devourers, Ward said, watching their faces carefully for any sign of recognition. He saw only confusion. Creatures that consume entire worlds, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. They attacked human space over 3 centuries ago, forcing us to evacuate our colonies and flee into the void. We have no records of any such species, Vex said. The galaxy has been at peace for over 200 years. The Alliance maintains order among all known civilizations. Ward felt his anger growing. Peace, while living on our worlds, using our cities, farming our land. Tell me, Commander, what do you know about the history of the worlds your Alliance controls? Our worlds have been inhabited by Alliance species for thousands of years, Vex replied, though his tone suggested he was beginning to have doubts. Show me, Ward demanded, activating the bridge's main display system. The massive holographic projector came to life, displaying a 3-dimensional map of local space that showed current political boundaries alongside historical human territory. The overlay was devastating. Every major Alliance world corresponded to a former human colony, with the alien settlements built directly on top of human infrastructure. Ward highlighted specific examples, showing satellite images of Alliance cities that had clearly been constructed using human foundations and power systems. Terra Nova, population 4 billion Kalari, Ward said, pointing to one of the highlighted worlds. Originally settled by humans in 2387, abandoned during the Devourer invasion in 2691. New Beijing, now called Alliance Sector 7 headquarters, was humanity's primary agricultural world for over 2 centuries. The aliens stared at the display in obvious shock. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Their entire civilization had been built on the ruins of humanity's former empire. "This is impossible," the scientists whispered. "Our archaeological surveys have never found evidence of prior habitation on these worlds." "Because you weren't looking for it," Ward replied, "and because we had to destroy most of our surface installations to prevent the Devourers from using them. But the foundations remain, hidden beneath your cities and industrial complexes." Commander Vex was studying the display with obvious distress. "If what you're saying is true, then our entire understanding of galactic history is wrong. But why did humans ever try to reclaim these worlds?" "Because we were busy preparing for the Devourer's return," Ward said grimly. "And they are returning, Commander. Our deep space monitors have been tracking their movements for decades. The main invasion fleet is still several years away, but their advanced scouts have already entered this galaxy." "You're asking us to believe in an enemy that doesn't exist," Vex said, though his voice lacked conviction. Ward activated another display, showing long-range sensor data from the ship's advanced detection systems. 3 probe ships entered galactic space 7 months ago. They've been systematically surveying outer rim worlds, testing defenses and cataloging populations. Your Alliance ships wouldn't even be able to detect them, let alone stop them. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If Ward was telling the truth, then not only had the Alliance been living on stolen worlds, but they were completely unprepared for the return of humanity's greatest enemy. "What do you want from us?" Vex asked finally. "Information," Ward replied. "We need to know the current state of galactic defenses, military capabilities, and population distributions. When the Devourers arrive in force, every world in this galaxy will be a target. And if we refuse to help?" Ward's expression hardened. "Then you'll face them alone, with technology that's 3 centuries out of date and no understanding of what you're fighting. The Devourers don't negotiate, Commander. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything in their path, and they've had 300 years to grow stronger." As if summoned by his words, the bridge's communication system activated with an urgent priority alert from the ship's long-range sensors. "Captain," Arya announced, "I'm detecting a Devourer probe ship entering the outer system. Estimated arrival at the nearest inhabited world in 47 hours. The emergency alert from Arya's long-range sensors changed everything aboard the Defiance's bridge. Commander Vex and his boarding party stared at the tactical display, showing the approaching Devourer probe with expressions of growing horror, while Captain Ward felt a familiar cold weight of impending battle settle over him. "Commander, you need to contact your fleet immediately," Ward ordered. "That probe will reach the nearest inhabited system within 2 days, and your people need to be evacuated." "This could be some kind of trick," Vex replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "How do we know this threat is real?" Ward activated the ship's historical combat records, filling the bridge's main display with footage from humanity's last battles against the Devourers 3 centuries ago. The images were horrific. Massive alien ships that seemed to absorb energy from everything around them, planets stripped bare of all organic matter, and human fleets being systematically destroyed by weapons that grew stronger with each engagement. "The Devourers don't fight like other species," War explained as the footage played. "They learn from every attack, adapting their defenses and improving their weapons in real time. A ship that survives one encounter will be nearly impossible to defeat in the next battle." Dr. Fox, the Alliance technical specialist, was studying the sensor readings with obvious distress. "Commander, if these readings are accurate, the probe ship is larger than our heaviest cruiser and moving at impossible speeds. Its energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. Because your databases don't include weapons designed to consume civilizations," Ward said grimly. "Arya, what's the status of our awakening crew?" "Senior staff revival is proceeding on schedule, Captain. Commander Blake and the department heads will be conscious within 30 minutes. However, I must report that the Alliance fleet position at the sector boundary is receiving new orders." Ward turned to Vex with raised eyebrows. "New orders?" Vex looked uncomfortable. "I may have activated an emergency beacon, when we first boarded your ship. Standard procedure when encountering unknown technology. And what does this beacon tell your superiors? That we've discovered a potentially hostile alien vessel of unknown capabilities. Ward felt a familiar surge of battlefield calm wash over him. After centuries of preparation, it seemed humanity would have to prove their capabilities once again. Arya scanned the approaching Alliance forces. The tactical display shifted to show 12 heavy cruisers moving toward the position at maximum speed. The ships were impressive by Galactic standards, but War could see immediately that they were designed for peacekeeping operations rather than serious warfare. Their weapon systems were intended to disable rather than destroy, and their shields were optimized for deflecting asteroid impacts rather than military-grade energy weapons. "Commander, how many crew members are aboard those ships?" Ward asked. "Approximately 800 per vessel," Vex replied. "Captain, surely there's been some misunderstanding. The Alliance Council wouldn't order an attack without attempting diplomatic contact first." "Arya, are we receiving any communication attempts from the Alliance fleet?" "Negative, Captain. However, I am detecting targeting sensors being focused on our position. The lead vessel appears to be charging weapons." Ward walked to the captain's chair at the center of the bridge, feeling the familiar weight of command settle around him like an old uniform. "All hands, this is the captain. General quarters. Prepare for combat operations. This is not a drill." Throughout the massive ship, systems that had been dormant for over 3 centuries sprang to life with deadly efficiency. Weapon systems powered up, shield generators hummed to operational capacity, and fighter squadrons in the hangar bays began their pre-flight preparations. The Defiants had been designed for one purpose: to fight and win against impossible odds. "Captain, you can't seriously be considering fighting 12 Alliance cruisers," Vex protested. "Even if your ship is more advanced, you're outnumbered 12 to 1. "Commander, your people are about to learn why humanity survived the Devourer War while other species didn't," War replied calmly. "Arya, open a communication channel to the Alliance fleet." "Channel open, Captain." "Alliance fleet, this is Captain James Ward of the United Earthship Defiance. You are approaching a human military vessel that is currently providing assistance to your boarding party. Any hostile action will be considered an act of war against humanity." The response came immediately from the Alliance fleet commander. "Unknown vessel. You will power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction." Ward looked at Vex with something approaching pity. "Commander, I suggest you and your people secure yourselves. This is going to be over very quickly." The first Alliance cruiser opened fire 3 minutes later, sending a barrage of plasma bolts toward the Defiance's hull. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy most ships in the galaxy, but they simply splashed harmlessly against a human vessel's shields without causing any noticeable drain on the ship's power systems. "Return fire," Ward ordered quietly. "Disable their weapons and propulsion systems. I want prisoners, not corpses." The Defiance's response was surgical in its precision. Focused particle beams lanced out from the ship's primary weapons, striking each Alliance cruiser's weapon systems with devastating accuracy. In less than 30 seconds, the entire Alliance fleet found itself completely disarmed, their weapon systems turned into twisted metal by human military technology. "Impossible," Vex whispered, staring at the tactical display in shock. "Those ships have the most advanced shields in the galaxy." "Had," Ward corrected. "Arya launched fighter squadrons. I want those ships immobilized before they can retreat and report our capabilities to their superiors." The Defiance's launch bays opened like the mouths of great predators, disgorging swarms of sleek fighter craft that moved with impossible speed and agility. The human pilots, awakened from stasis just minutes earlier, flew their ships with the deadly skill that kept humanity alive during the darkest days of the Devourer War. The Alliance ships tried to run, but their propulsion systems were systematically destroyed by precise fighter attacks. Within minutes, 12 of the galaxy's most powerful warships were drifting helplessly in space, their crews trapped aboard vessels that had been reduced to little more than passenger compartments. "Total Alliance casualties?" Ward asked. 17 wounded, no fatalities," Arya reported. Our targeting systems were able to avoid crew compartments while disabling military systems. Ward turned to Commander Vex, who was staring at the tactical display in stunned silence. "Commander, I need you to understand something very important. What you just witnessed was humanity showing restraint. If we had wanted to destroy your fleet, there would be nothing left but scattered atoms." "How is this possible?" Dr. Fox whispered. "Your technology is centuries beyond anything we thought achievable. Because we developed it fighting an enemy that makes your worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams," Ward replied. "The Devourers forced us to become something we never wanted to be, the most effective killing machines in the galaxy." "Captain," Arya interrupted, "I'm receiving a priority communication from the Alliance High Council. They're demanding immediate surrender and threatening to dispatch their entire military fleet." Ward almost smiled. "Put them through." The bridge's main display activated, showing a conference room filled with various alien dignitaries who were obviously the Alliance's ruling council. Their expressions ranged from outrage to barely controlled panic. "This is Chancellor Drix of the Alliance High Council," announced a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. "You will immediately release our ships and surrender yourself for judgment. Your unprovoked attack on Alliance forces is an act of war." "Chancellor, I am Captain James Ward, representing the human military forces that have returned to reclaim our rightful place in this galaxy," Ward replied calmly. "Your ships opened fire first, and we responded with the minimum force necessary to protect ourselves." "Humans are extinct," Chancellor Drix snapped. "Whatever deception you're attempting will not succeed." Ward gestured to Arya, who immediately began broadcasting the censored data, showing the approaching Devourer probe. "Chancellor, in approximately 36 hours, that probe will reach one of your outer colonies. It will systematically destroy every living thing on that world, and your current military technology won't even slow it down." The council chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. The censored data was undeniable, showing a massive alien vessel moving toward Alliance space with obvious hostile intent. "Even if we believe your claims about this threat," Chancellor Drix said finally, "what gives you the right to attack our ships?" "The right of a species that has spent 3 centuries preparing to fight an enemy you don't even know exists," Ward replied. "The Devourers are coming whether you believe in them or not. The only question is whether you'll accept our help or face them with technology that's 300 years out of date." "And what exactly are you proposing?" Ward activated a display showing locations of all 7 human supercarriers, each one positioned to protect a major galactic region. "Humanity has returned, Chancellor. We have the weapons, the training, and the experience to fight the Devourers. But we need your cooperation to coordinate planetary defenses and evacuations. You're asking us to surrender our sovereignty to a species that just destroyed our most powerful fleet," another council member objected. "I'm offering to save your lives," Ward replied bluntly. "In 6 months, maybe less, the main Devourer invasion fleet will arrive. When that happens, every world in this galaxy will be a target. You can work with us and have a chance at survival, or you can maintain your pride and watch your civilizations be consumed." The communication channel went silent as the Alliance Council conferred among themselves. Ward knew they were faced with an impossible choice: accept help from a species they thought extinct, or face an enemy that had already destroyed one galactic civilization. "Captain," Arya reported quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting the Devourer probe beginning its final approach to the Kepler system. Estimated contact with planetary defenses in 18 hours. Ward turned back to the display showing the Alliance Council. "Chancellor, you have 18 hours to make your decision. After that, the Devourers will make it for you." The Kepler system burned for 3 days before the Alliance High Council finally accepted that Captain Ward had been telling the truth about the Devourers. The probe ship had arrived exactly when human sensors predicted it would, systematically destroying the outer colony's defenses before beginning the horrific process of planetary consumption that left 4 million beings dead and an entire world stripped of all organic matter. Chancellor Drix stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his pale blue skin even paler than usual as he read the final report from the Kepler disaster. The assembled representatives from dozens of worlds listened in stunned silence as he described how their most advanced fleet had been utterly helpless against a single enemy vessel. "The probe ship absorbed energy from our weapons," Drix announced, his voice barely steady. "Every shot we fired made it stronger. Our shields were useless against weapons that seemed to drain power directly from our ship's cores. Within 6 hours, the entire Kepler defense fleet was destroyed without inflicting any measurable damage on the enemy." Captain Ward watched the proceedings from the Defiance's bridge, transmitted through diplomatic channels that the Alliance had grudgingly opened after their catastrophic defeat. Beside him, Commander Vex remained aboard as an unofficial liaison, though Ward suspected the Alliance officer was really there to spy on human capabilities. "Captain, are you monitoring the debate in the Council chamber?" Arya asked through the ship's communication system. "Yes, and it's about what I expected," Ward replied. "Half of them want to surrender immediately. The other half think we're somehow responsible for the Devourer attack." The Council chamber's audio feed confirmed Ward's assessment as various representatives argued among themselves. Some called for immediate acceptance of human military leadership, while others insisted that humanity's convenient arrival proved they were working with the Devourers to conquer the galaxy. "This is exactly what happened to the Zephyrian Empire," Ward told Vex quietly. "They spent so much time arguing about whether to trust us that the Devourers consumed half their worlds before they finally accepted our help. What happened to the Zephyrians?" Vex asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "Extinct, along with the hegemony of Krell, the Stellar Federation, and about 24 other civilizations that thought they could handle the Devourers on their own." On the display, Chancellor Drix was trying to maintain order as the debate grew more heated. Representative after representative stood to voice their opinions, but Ward could see that fear was beginning to override political considerations. The footage from Kepler had been broadcast throughout Alliance space, and entire worlds were demanding protection that their governments couldn't provide. "The human claims may be accurate," admitted Representative Zara of the Centauri Coalition, "but accepting their leadership means acknowledging that our entire understanding of galactic history is wrong. How do we explain to our people that they've been living on stolen worlds?" "You tell them the truth," Ward said into his communication device, broadcasting directly to the Council chamber, "that humanity was driven from those worlds by an enemy that consumed civilizations, and that we're offering to help you keep the same thing from happening to your people." The chamber fell silent as Ward's image appeared on their main display. He stood on the Defiance's bridge with the confidence of a man who had fought impossible battles and survived, while behind him the massive ship systems hummed with barely contained power. "Captain Ward," Chancellor Drix said carefully, "the Council is prepared to discuss terms for cooperation, but many of our members have concerns about placing Alliance worlds under human military authority." "Chancellor, with respect, you don't have time for concerns," Ward replied bluntly. "Our deep space monitors are tracking 17 more Devourer probes entering galactic space. Within 3 months, they'll have mapped your defenses and identified your most vulnerable worlds. 6 months after that, the main invasion fleet arrives." Ward activated a tactical display showing the approaching enemy forces. The scale was staggering. Thousands of ships arranged in perfect formation, moving through deep space with the inexorable certainty of a natural disaster. Each vessel was larger than the probe that had destroyed Kepler, and the fleet's combined mass suggested an enemy that had grown exponentially during the centuries since humanity's exile. "This is what consumed my homeworld," Ward continued, highlighting Earth's location on the display. "This is what drove us from every colony we'd established, forced us to abandon cities that had taken centuries to build. The only reason humanity survived is because we learned to fight them on their own terms." "And what terms are those?" Representative Zara asked. "Total war," Ward answered simply. "The Devourers don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't show mercy. They exist for one purpose: to consume everything in their path. Fighting them requires weapons and tactics that your current military can't provide." Dr. Fox, who had remained aboard the Defiance to study human technology, stepped forward with obvious excitement. "Chancellor, I've been analyzing their ship systems for the past week. Their weapons operate on principles we don't understand. Their shields can deflect energy levels that would destroy our heaviest cruisers, and their fighters move faster than our sensors can track. How much faster? Chancellor Drix asked. Approximately 15 times faster than our best interceptors, Dr. Fox admitted. And that's just their standard patrol craft. Their heavy assault fighters appeared to be capable of even greater speeds. Ward nodded grimly. We developed that technology because Devourer ships move faster than anything you've ever imagined. Their smaller vessels can cross a star system in hours, while their capital ships can jump directly from one galaxy to another without using traditional hyperspace routes. The council chamber erupted in panicked conversation as the implications sank in. If the enemy could move with such speed, then traditional defensive strategies were useless. No world could be reinforced quickly enough to mount an effective defense against an attack that could come from any direction without warning. What are you proposing? Chancellor Drix asked when order was finally restored. Complete military integration, Ward replied. Human commanders take control of all Alliance military forces. Human technology replaces your current weapons and defensive systems. Human tactics replace your current strategic doctrines. And you do exactly what we tell you to do when we tell you to do it. That's not cooperation, Representative Zara objected. That's conquest. No, Ward said quietly. Conquest is what the Devourers do. What I'm offering is survival. The debate continued for hours, with various representatives proposing modifications and alternatives to Ward's demands. Some wanted joint command structures. Others insisted on maintaining Alliance autonomy in certain sectors. Ward listened patiently, but his expression grew grimmer with each proposed compromise. Captain, Arya interrupted privately. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the second Devourer probe. It appears to be transmitting data back toward the main fleet. Learning our capabilities, Ward muttered. Arya, prepare a long-range strike mission. I want that probe destroyed before it can report back to the fleet. Understood, Captain. Fighter squadrons are ready for launch. Ward turned his attention back to the council debate, where Chancellor Drix was trying to build consensus around a proposal for shared command authority. The Alliance would maintain control of their civilian populations, while humans directed military operations. Chancellor, that arrangement won't work, Ward interrupted. Military and civilian operations can't be separated during a Devourer invasion. When they attack a world, evacuation and defense have to be coordinated perfectly or everyone dies. Then what do you suggest? Drix asked with obvious frustration. Martial law. Ward replied bluntly. Every Alliance world, every civilian population, every resource or facility under direct human control until the Devourer threat is eliminated. The council chamber exploded in outrage. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding explanations and threatening to withdraw from any cooperation agreement. Ward watched the chaos with a detached calm of man who had seen entire civilizations destroy themselves through indecision. This is exactly what we expected. Commander Vex said quietly, the Alliance has never faced an existential threat. They don't understand what total war means. They're about to learn, Ward replied. Arya launched the strike mission. I want that probe destroyed within the hour. Strike mission launching now, Captain. On the tactical display, 6 human fighters detached from the Defiance and accelerated toward the distant Devourer probe at impossible speeds. The small craft moved through space like guided missiles, their advanced propulsion systems leaving trails of distorted space-time behind them. What are you doing? Chancellor Drix demanded as alarms began sounding in Alliance monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Demonstrating why you need us, Ward replied. Your people are tracking 6 objects moving faster than your sensors thought possible, carrying weapons that operate on principles your scientists don't understand, toward a target that your entire fleet couldn't scratch. The strike took exactly 17 minutes. The human fighters reached the Devourer probe, delivered their payload of antimatter warheads, and returned to Defiance before Alliance sensors could even calculate their flight path. The probe ship, which had shrugged off the combined firepower of the Kepler defense fleet, was reduced to scattered atoms by weapons that seemed to ignore its adaptive defenses. How? Dr. Fox whispered, staring at his sensor readings in amazement. Because we know how they adapt, Ward explained. Devourers learn from energy-based attacks, but they've never developed defenses against pure antimatter annihilation. It's one of 17 different weapon systems we developed specifically to counter their adaptive capabilities. Chancellor Drix looked around the stunned council chamber, seeing the fear and amazement in every representative's eyes. Captain Ward, if we accept your terms, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply replace the Devourers as conquerors? Ward was quiet for a long moment before responding. Because, Chancellor, we already lost everything once. We know what it feels like to watch your civilization burn while you run for your life. No one should have to experience that. But you'll still demand complete control. Because it's the only way to win, Ward said simply. The Devourers are coming whether you trust us or not. The only question is whether you want to face them as allies or as corpses. The galaxy changed forever on the day the main Devourer fleet was detected at the edge of known space. Long-range sensors across dozens of worlds simultaneously register the massive energy signatures of thousands of ships emerging from the dark void between galaxies, their combined mass so enormous that they actually bent space-time around them. Captain Ward stood on the bridge of Defiance, watching the tactical displays update with increasingly grim numbers as more enemy vessels continued to appear. The invasion fleet was larger than anything humanity had faced before, suggesting that the Devourers had spent the past 3 centuries not just surviving, but growing exponentially in both numbers and capabilities. "Final count, Arya," Ward requested, though he already knew the answer would be devastating. 7,432 capital ships, approximately 50,000 escort vessels, an estimated 2 million smaller craft. The AI reported with mechanical precision. Total fleet mass exceeds anything in our historical databases by a factor of 12. Commander Vex, who had become Ward's unofficial liaison with the Alliance government, stared at the display in obvious shock. That's more ships than exist in the entire galaxy. Because they consumed other galaxies to build them, Ward replied grimly. The Devourers don't just destroy civilizations. They convert their resources into more ships and weapons. Every world they consumed has made them stronger. The past 6 months have been a nightmare of political maneuvering and desperate preparation. Half the Alliance worlds had reluctantly accepted human military leadership after the destruction of 3 more colonies by Devourer probes. But the other half had formed a resistance movement under Chancellor Drix, convinced that humanity was using the alien threat to justify their conquest of the galaxy. The division had crippled any hope of unified defense. While human supercarriers worked frantically to upgrade Alliance worlds with anti-Devourer technology, entire sectors remained vulnerable due to political obstruction. Weapons shipments were delayed by bureaucratic interference. Evacuation plans were sabotaged by officials who refused to acknowledge the threat, and training programs were undermined by leaders who feared human influence more than alien invasion. "Captain, I'm receiving communication requests from 17 different Alliance governments," Arya announced. "They're all demanding immediate protection now that the main fleet has been detected." "Too little, too late," Ward muttered. "Show me the tactical situation." The main display shifted to show the current positions of all 7 human supercarriers, each one anchored at key defensive points throughout Alliance space. The massive ships had been working around the clock to establish defensive networks, but they were woefully insufficient to protect an entire galaxy from the approaching swarm. The U.S. Vengeance held the core systems around the old Alliance capital, while the U.S. Retribution guarded the major industrial worlds of the Outer Rim. The U.S. Salvation protected the agricultural systems that fed billions of beings, and the U.S. Redemption covered the strategic mining colonies that supplied raw materials for the war effort. 3 more supercarriers, the U.S. Victory, the U.S. Justice, and Ward's own Defiance, were positioned to provide rapid response to breakthrough attacks. "It's not enough," Commander Vex observed, studying the defensive positions. 7 ships can't protect hundreds of worlds from an enemy that size. "No, they can't," Ward agreed, "which is why we're not going to try." "What do you mean?" Ward activated a different display, showing locations of critical choke points throughout the galaxy. "We're going to make them come to us." Every major hyperspace route has been mined with antimatter charges. Every strategic system has been turned into a fortress. We can't be everywhere, but we can control where the battles happen. The strategy was brutal in its simplicity. Rather than trying to defend every world, humanity would force the Devourers into predictable attack patterns by making certain targets irresistible, while leaving others deliberately vulnerable. The enemy would be channeled into carefully prepared killing zones where human weapons could achieve maximum effectiveness. You're talking about sacrificing entire worlds, Vex said with obvious horror. I'm talking about saving the galaxy, Ward replied bluntly. Every world we abandon now is a world that might survive the war. Every world we try to defend with insufficient resources is a world that definitely won't. The communication system activated with an urgent priority signal from the Alliance Emergency Council. Chancellor Drix appeared on the main display, his usual composure completely shattered as he stared at reports from his own military analysts. Captain Ward, our long-range sensors confirm your projections, Drix announced without preamble. The enemy fleet will reach the outer systems within 96 hours. We formally request immediate human military intervention in all Alliance territories. Chancellor, 6 months ago I offered you complete protection in exchange for complete cooperation, Ward replied calmly. You chose to maintain your political independence instead. Now you want protection without giving up control. The situation has changed, Drix insisted. Surely you can't expect us to maintain political disputes when facing extinction. Ward activated a tactical display, showing the galaxy divided into zones of human control and Alliance resistance. The contrast was stark. Worlds under human protection had been transformed into heavily defended fortresses with integrated weapon systems and evacuation protocols, while resistance territories remained vulnerable and unprepared. Chancellor, the worlds that accepted our authority 6 months ago now have a fighting chance, Ward explained. The worlds that refused our help are going to be consumed in the first wave of attacks. That's not a threat. It's a mathematical certainty based on their current defensive capabilities. Then help us now, Drix pleaded. We'll accept any terms you propose. No, you won't, Ward said with absolute certainty. Because the terms I'm proposing now are much harsher than what you rejected 6 months ago. Ward gestured to Arya, who immediately displayed the new conditions for Alliance worlds seeking human protection. The list was extensive and uncompromising. Complete surrender of political authority, mandatory conscription of all adults for military service, relocation of entire populations to defensible positions, and conversion of all industrial capacity to war production. This is occupation, not cooperation, Representative Zara protested from her position in the Emergency Council chamber. This is survival, Ward corrected. The Devourers will be here in 4 days. Every minute you spend debating is a minute not spent preparing your people for what's coming. The debate that followed was brief but bitter. Half the remaining Alliance worlds immediately capitulated to human demands, terrified by the approaching fleet and desperate for any protection. The other half, led by Chancellor Drix, continued to insist on maintaining their sovereignty even as. Long-range sensors tracked the enemy's inexorable approach. Captain, I'm detecting the first wave of Devourer scout ships entering the outer systems, Arya reported. 12 vessels, moving at maximum speed toward the Rigel sector. Response time to Rigel? Ward asked. The UES Retribution can intercept in 47 minutes. Ward opened a communication channel to Captain Harris aboard the Retribution. Mike, you've got incoming scouts heading for your sector. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. I want complete destruction. No survivors to report back to the main fleet. Understood, Jim. We'll give them a warm welcome. The battle at Rigel lasted exactly 11 minutes. The Devourer scouts, expecting to encounter the same primitive resistance they had faced at Kepler, instead found themselves facing weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter their adaptive capabilities. Human fighters struck with devastating precision, while the Retribution's main guns delivered antimatter warheads that completely bypassed the enemy's energy absorption defenses. The footage from the battle was broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing Alliance populations exactly what they were facing and exactly what humanity could do about it. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Resistance movements collapsed overnight as terrified civilians demanded protection at any cost. Chancellor, Your time is up, Ward announced as reports poured in from across Alliance space. The main fleet will arrive tomorrow. Any world that isn't under human protection by then will be on its own. The final surrender came at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time, when Chancellor Drix formally transferred all Alliance military authority to human command. The ceremony was broadcast from the Defiance's bridge, with Ward accepting the surrender while standing before tactical displays showing the approaching Devourer Armada. Citizens of the galaxy, Ward addressed the billions of beings watching the transmission. Tomorrow we face an enemy that has consumed entire civilizations, an enemy that grows stronger with every victory. But today, for the first time in over 3 centuries, that enemy faces united resistance from species that refuse to be devoured. Behind him, the tactical display showed the final defensive positions. 7 human supercarriers anchored at strategic points throughout the galaxy, their fighter squadrons ready for launch and their weapons charged for battle. Alliance fleets, hastily upgraded with human technology, took supporting positions while planetary defense networks came online across hundreds of worlds. The Devourers believe they will find easy prey in this galaxy, Ward continued, his voice carrying the absolute confidence of a man who had fought impossible battles and survived. They are about to learn that humanity does not run anymore. We do not hide anymore, and we do not surrender. The main fleet arrived 18 hours later, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation like a plague of mechanical locusts. The lead elements immediately began their attack runs on the outer colonies, expecting the same easy victories they had achieved for millennia. Instead, they found minefields that turned space itself into a weapon, fighter squadrons that moved faster than their sensors could track, and defenders who had spent 300 years learning how to kill things that shouldn't be able to die. The first battle of the new war lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Devourer Vanguard. As the burning remains of enemy ships drifted through space, Ward stood on his bridge and watched the tactical displays update with the positions of both fleets. The real war was just beginning, but for the first time since humanity had fled their homeworlds, they were no longer running. The line had been drawn, and this time they would not retreat.